Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's well on this third day of Indaba mining. While I wait for my panelists, I think you can just join me on the podium. Yeah, I'll do the intro and then we can start it off. As Nicole just mentioned, I am Hanan Furjani. I am a journalist, a documentary maker, also the founder of a all-digital news and context-based platform called Beyond the Noise Africa. And I think it's quite interesting when we talk about commodity in any way, shape, or form, namely gold. It's very seldom that we put sort of gold at the center of the conversation. We also obviously speak of the ecosystem as a whole, but rarely find a way to put gold, which is the cement and foundation of all of it, at the center of the conversation. So it is to the credit of the Africa Gold Council that we're having an entire session dedicated to this conversation. So I commend them for that, and I'm very honored to be the one driving this conversation. I come from a region called the Sahel, but also Sahara, where gold is an inherent part of how we live. It marks milestones, whether weddings or just generally dowries, how women are orned with gold pieces stitched on their outfits and their crowns where they get married, but it's also passed down from a generation to the next. And it also serves not only as an heirloom, but also as savings, as security. Some things that women who are often custodians of gold have understood for generations now, that it is important to be able to have it and to own it. And I'm very excited and exhilarated to be having this conversation with very brilliant panelists that know this firsthand. We speak of the Sahel, but it applies to other regions of the continent. And we have three very interesting people here with us that are going to speak to these experiences from their background. So Umi Diaw, you join us from Senegal, and you work at the intersection of culture, luxury, and narrative. You have already met Abdullah Mohammed Osman, who comes from a second generation family of jeweler and who spent over 15 years in the gem and bullion trade. And we also have Nere Emiko, who's a pioneer in Nigeria's gold and value chain, leading the country's first gold refinery, but also the directs the Legacy of Traditions initiative in partnership with the Ghana Emirate Council, which bridges heritage, tourism, and the economic systems. So the various questions that we're going to touch on, but the main one I think is, which is central to this, is how do we make sure that we understand that gold in in the traditional and cultural sense can be the driver of the ecosystem that we want to see, right, for the future. And I want to begin with something personal, maybe with you, Abdullah, growing and coming from a family of jewelers that you've also now, not now, but for a while have decided to also make your career. When did you understand that it was, yes, a commodity, but something bigger and deeper than that?
Thank you very much again for having me here. So I grew up in a Somali cultural way. So my mom actually started our jewelry company, and she still designs. So she sent the designs, and she does all the rings and all of that. She still does that. So as a culture, so as a Somalis, when we get married, we give dowry. So we give dowry, and that's gold. Back in the days, in hundreds of years back, we used to give camels because we have a lot of camels. But in the last 100 years or so, it's mainly gold. And so gold has been really a culture for ourselves. And at the same time, it's also, as a Somalis, we see gold as a value. So having jewelry stores, we have people who regularly come and buy gold, keep them as a sort of a safe savings, and then after 2 months they'll bring back the gold and sell the gold. So it's a store of value first and foremost, and also culturally. So there will be no wedding happens in the Somali culture where there is no gold involved. So and it, for me, I grew up in that kind of culture where my mom started the company, and so I feel deep connection into that, and culturally, if I don't see gold daily, I think I'm missing something. So gold has been really something ingrained into us.
ingrained
Yes.
into the Somali culture, and
Society.
I'm sure like
Yes.
we're gonna hear from other panelists. It's deeper than it's sort of wider than Somalia. And Ummi, I want to you maybe to speak on or sort of add to what was just said by Abdullah. He spoke of gold being an inherent part of the culture and habits and traditions and everyday life. Why do you think African relationship to gold has been so deeply embodied?
Good morning, everyone. I think, first of all, I think what is really unique about Africa is, first of all, we're not. Gold is almost our invention. You know, it's. I always say that we tend to forget that many African countries are the bed of the people of the gold. In other words, we're not called by our skin color. This is just unheard of. We're the people of the gold. So we also have a tremendous asset is that we're naturally keen to aesthetics. We have a sense of aesthetics. And I don't know, I guess because of history, you know, the 500 years of history, you know, it really shifted the narrative of the continent. And it's like we gave our gold for peanuts. So I think this is still, we're unfortunately still battling with this. And it's a shame because, you know, the level of creativity that is in the continent is colossal. And just by focusing on our diversity in terms of ethnical groups, it's like each ethnical group has different language, different lifestyle. So it means that we have the capital to create new things around gold, and I feel like we really we have a long way to go, and I try to understand, you know, beyond that. Of course, there's a problem of cost, but I think the imaginary also is completely it's just problematic. Like, for example, when I do research about curating an exhibition or simply publishing, and there's absolutely nothing about gold for our continent. And to me, it's really a serious problem. So how can we invite more reinvention of the continent, especially when we're the land of gold? So I'm just really concerned somehow. I'm really concerned about this.
Like you said, I think there's a long way to go, and as you mentioned, the continent as a whole is quite ripe with gold, and there's a sense sometimes that the narrative around gold is missing, the data is missing, and also the visuals and the be able to showcase
Yeah.
how inherent it is to traditions and what we look like and what we want to emulate, is what I understand from what you just said. Neri, I'll throw it to you now, maybe building on what our other panelists just mentioned to start us off. How do you believe traditional relationships to gold still shape how communities understand its value?
I think I was still stewing on what Umi was saying about the disturbance and how we traded our gold for peanuts. I think to go around, I think sometimes we had so much gold, maybe we didn't really see its value because it was so abundant. It's kind of like I cracked this joke about our culture and the weather. So in Africa, there's a mango tree everywhere, there's fruits everywhere. It's green everywhere. The land is rich, so you don't really take it as something exceptional until you go to a very hard place and then you value what you have. So maybe that was part of our problem. There was just so much wealth. We didn't see much of it. But back to the traditions and culture, I feel like a good place, I'll use that example, is like the Ashanti Kingdom. In their case, it's only the king really that wears the gold and his royal court. However, that's the symbolism, the storytelling. You literally, you see the picture of the Ashanti king, you see all of them, and you could just see the wealth of that empire. I mean the wealth of the kingdom. And it tells a different story. And I think that's really what's important for us in Africa with storytelling. When I think of tradition and culture, like in Kano, every time they do a Durbar, for those who don't know, a Durbar, it's a huge procession of the horses, usually around Eid, in the thousands, tens of thousands. But what I love about the Durbar, for example, like in Kano, you will have, let me see, some regiments, some rulers, they will have silver. Literally all the chainmail of their guards is pure silver. The horses are adorned in silver. And I remember we did this research once, and I think we came up with about 20 kilograms of silver were used. And this is not because everyone used silver, but there were a few of them, it was just the silver. And I think what I'm saying about this, back to the traditions, is sometimes there's this reminder for us, once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, in a traditional celebration, similar to weddings, that it reminds us again about our identity. It preserves that culture. It preserves, at least it brings a mind shift, to use that word. We were talking about that at literally an event called Mind Shift. But it brings a mind shift, a reminder that, wait, like Umi said, we belong to the gold, or the gold belongs to us. We're together. This is our culture. This is our heritage. So I think the traditional institutions are very important for this, traditional ceremonies, because it keeps the cultural identity alive and front center.
Thank you for this interesting also amount of research that you brought to light, because again it reminds us that this applies to various regions in the continent. Yeah, we mentioned the Sahel, we mentioned Somalia, now we're mentioning which is also in the Sahel, northern Nigeria. We speak of traditions. You mentioned kings in the Ashanti region and chiefs being sort of the ones that would wear the gold, but I'm interested in how women are, sort of the foundation of this in many ways, not just in how they create, and in your case, maybe Abdullah, the designs, but also how they, at least in my culture, are often the sort of custodian of gold. And how do we make sure, as we're having these conversations about culture and how this has to remain an integral part of the ecosystem, that also women are not only custodians, but also really the drivers of this ecosystem that can be a source of revenue for them, for their families. I'll start with you, and then I'll throw that question to Umi as well.
Gold, like whenever you imagine gold, you imagine a woman, basically. That's where gold is. Coming back to the store of value. Women are always a store of value, as in they are. So, for example, in our case, as I already mentioned, that they use gold as a safe haven, and at the same time, beauty and all of that. In order for our women to preserve that, is actually create something that everybody can come to, and that comes to arts. And as an African, our women are good at arts. And if you go to, for example, in Kenya or in Ethiopia, there's a lot of cultures that they have a lot of creativity way of creating art. So why can we not do that in gold? Less so, because gold has a different way of refinement. So, as Cross already mentioned, there's 18 carats and the 22 carats and the 24 carats. Why can you not make it even lesser of a carat, because of the price comes down in that, and then make an art the way that other arts has been done. So, for example, once you have a festivals, like let's say yesterday and the opening of Indaba, there was a lot of festival happening. Why can you not do the art in gold? So I think for us to preserve that, I think the art is the way to go, apart from the other ways of saying it.
Umi.
I think when it comes to to changing the narrative in the global market in Africa. We have to rebuild like it's a brand. You have to position properly gold of Africa like you're positioning a high-end luxury brand. And if you pay attention to the major luxury houses, what makes them attractive, despite how expensive it can be to acquire one piece of that logoed brand? It's because they make it desirable. What makes it desirable? It's because they also dig into sensational and also I insist on the aesthetics. Aesthetics is fundamental when you want to position yourself in a market where you want to be the most desired brands to be considered a top brand. So I think for that I think Africa hasn't reached that point of making people dream about Africa. And this is so important. If we do not change the way we present our product, we will always be, it's going to be a turnoff. You know, I mean, I was having a conversation before about, when you go on social media, you see all those big African weddings with so much gold. It's huge. I mean, we're talking about serious money, but the way they present it is just not flattering enough to make gold desirable. So we need to think about how we can work with the creatives, because at the end of the day, it's about creativity. But also, I think education is important. We need to have more schools to teach people how to create a product, how to use your heritage, how to use contemporary arts, and also how to use fashion. These are at least fashion and contemporary art are very powerful today in Africa, and the world is paying attention. People flying to Africa to see an exhibition, an art exhibition. Who knew that 10 years ago that wasn't the case? But gold is to me where we need to seriously sit down with the creatives, work also with the schools, because you need also to give the opportunity to the young generation to dream about, I want to have a full house built of gold. Why not? Why not? It's possible. It's like when you want to be a superstar, when you want to be a top model, you have something that brings you your imaginary to something more exceptional that we think that I think gold hasn't explored yet, and we're the only people that can do that. But that means also we need also to be willing to collaborate with international institutions in order to have a win-win situation so we can complete each other. And I think somewhere Mining Indaba has a hashtag, stronger together. It's true, but we need also to look at ourselves African and reacquaint ourselves with who we are as a people and go back to the sense of aesthetics mixed with heritage and not just being trapped into economy and extraction.
Yeah.
So
you did mention education and sort of having the ability to educate not only in the creative side of making gold pieces, but also in understanding the business and the brand behind it. I'm curious what you feel about what was just said by Umi Neri in terms of how do we sort of match a global market and what it's interested in, while still being ourselves authentically and not flattening or erasing those cultural aspects.
I think why that's so important is because if we don't create a market, then we're just going to continue what we're doing, which is exporting and selling our gold for glass beads. First of all, like we're saying, this culture, this identity, we have to see it as valuable. And sometimes maybe you don't see it as valuable until someone else sees it as valuable. It's what it is. But if that's happening, this is about market. The marketplace, whether we talk about like branding, I love all she was saying, you have to build something that's desirable. And I really believe that for us here in Africa, there is a marketplace. As you said, the issue, what we found is the market is very informal. The market stays hidden, is out of sight because the market is, we know the market is there because people are using gold to pay for things and to live their lives quietly, even without bank accounts. But is that the higher way? And I think what we're saying for us, for Africa, is until we bring this market to a level of sophistication and I don't want to use the word formalization. I think it's beyond that. It's really about sophistication. I think we need to build a sophisticated market. And it's similar to, I think I heard Grant talk about Vincentia and all the shows, the jewelry shows are, one thing I know that the jewelers say, it's a chicken and an egg problem. They can't find the gold. So when I see the jewelry designers, real amazing creative design, they come to us, they cannot get the gold. They can't find gold. So this is what I'm trying to say is a chicken and egg problem. All the gold is going out, being exported because we seem to value cash more than creativity. So I say this again to say this about my findings here. We will spend more on a Chanel bag maybe than an art exhibition. We value a bag more, but this is not the case in other markets. The exhibition, the art, the thing that points to identity and the soul is more valuable. So I think this is why, for me, I really find that gold and culture are important. If we're pulling back for all of us in Africa, the roots of gold to the soul, which is why I was stuck when Umi said, what did you say? We belong to the gold. How did you say that?
People of the gold.
We're people of the gold. I mean, I just sat here because my soul absorbed it. And I feel like if we begin to see this as this is who we are, it elevates what we present. The reason why traditional ceremonies, like we talk back to tradition and funerals, you could see an African has no money, and they really may have no money, but you'd be amazed by how much will be spent at a funeral or at a wedding, because it talks about their soul. They can't quite quantify their soul. The soul is invaluable. And for them, you pull out the best. And I feel like this is what we want to see for the markets. It's like a call for Africa to say, let the artists, the designers come together with the marketplace, and let's really pull out something from our soul to really create sophisticated markets.
It's interesting what you mentioned. I think you said the same thing. We're sometimes, even as Africans, we're responsible of that. We're guilty of that, of buying sort of luxury brands, whether it's bags or whatever it is, or gold that comes from certain name brands, and we don't necessarily look at inwards as to what jewelers are making, or maybe because that reputation has not preceded them on the international scale yet. So there is also rebranding and sort of reclaiming narrative that has to happen within the continent. If I'm not mistaken, you tell me if I'm wrong here. There is, as you said, being able to own that we are people of the gold, that we are able and capable of making gold appealing to the finest of standards, and then also creating the ecosystem whereby you can find the gold and then go to the people that actually can make nice designs and then get a sort of full value chain. Does it feel like a complicated ordeal to you, Umi?
I think it goes back to the imaginary. Yeah. The reason why a person prefer to buy, for example, a purse because there's a label, versus owning gold, it says a lot about how your mindset function, and that means that the power of imaginary is definitely underestimated. Like, for example, when you see gold, if you go on internet, you look gold. It's always that gold bar, yeah, like the big vaults, but it's a Western imaginary. Mm-hmm. But this is not who we are technically. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think the creatives and everybody involved into image taking, social media, whoever is involved in the visual arts has to be able to start coming back to what is the imaginary of gold for African, authentically speaking. That's the only way you can reinvent gold. But also and I think the world needs it today because gold is not just that gold bar that you see in the British Bank or when it's associated to hold up and things like that. What about the poetry of African gold history and tradition and also the sense of mystique? Because gold is not just aesthetics. It's deeply connected to our
Yeah.
cosmic mindset. Because Africa, people of the gold is about being cosmic. The land, for example, I traveled from Dakar to Addis Ababa to come to Cape Town. And I saw the land. Every time you cross a border, you have that. Sometimes I was like, oh my God, the color looks like there could be gold here. But that's why we're the people of the gold. So, where do we start having the conversation to really define and bring a new approach of how we talk about luxury and gold?
I wonder how much of this conversation feels like it could go and fly above the head of a regular person that's just in the mind, just kind of, trying to get gold because they can make money at the end of the day. And then even craftsmen who probably don't understand, as you were mentioning before, Neri, how much of a value it has because especially today the commodity is flying in terms of price, right? We're soaring and we're reaching levels where people are trying to buy gold because they understand how much it keeps soaring. So are we having a conversation that feels a little bit too above, too meta versus like, you know what I mean, concrete for the people that are in contact with the gold on a daily basis, Abdullah?
It's very interesting. They really spoke deeply from their hearts. The way you're explaining people of the gold, that also really touched me. Thank you very much, by the way. I think we have to have an exhibition only for gold. I think that's the only way so we can actually unlock the creativity of our continent. So we have Indaba, we have all of that, we have cultural. So why can we not have an Africa Gold Council? It's something that really can drive that, and we can get behind that. So it's actually bringing it together, and to have that ecosystem is actually easier than before because now there's a 3Ds, there are AIs. So it's matter of actually coming together, creating that kind of ecosystem, be it small or medium, whatever. You can start small and then create that kind of vibe, and as Africa is in vibe, whether it's in music or in anything else. So I believe we can create that ecosystem, whether it's the creativity, the manufacturing, and all of that. We have the gold, we have the refineries, we have the talent. So why can we not do it?
And how do
I
we
believe.
make sure that, like I said, the small scale miner, artisanal, and the craftsmen are also included in this?
If you
Yeah.
create, for example, if you create that ecosystem, let's say supermarket, what can you get from the supermarket? Everything else. Why can you not create a ecosystem where the jewelers can have their bite, where the miners can actually walk in and sell their product? So we can create that ecosystem. It's not that complicated, but it needs an effort and an imagination. So we can create that, I believe.
I love the optimism. I think we have a couple minutes to close. So I'm just going to ask every single one of you to maybe give us your main takeaway and what you feel should be the sort of concluding remarks to this conversation around golden culture. And we'll start with you, Neri.
I think I think the reason why this conversation is fundamental, not over the head, is every decision is a mind shift. You have to ask yourself some questions and think. Most of the time, like even at Indaba, we fly from meeting to meeting. It's schedule to schedule. You don't really have time to think. But if you sometimes things sit in the subconscious. It's like literally the red car that you weren't looking for. Suddenly you're in the market for a red car, and then you say there's never a red car on the road, and suddenly there's a red car everywhere you drive. I think that's what's important about this discussion. That is going to go into the subconscious. We're going to start thinking and asking ourselves questions, and it will be there, and this will be the red car that we'll run in and see on the road until we eventually realize I found the red car that I need to buy. Thank you.
Thank you. Abdullah.
Again, I will still come back to that. we should create that culture. We should create that ecosystem. I'm not going to take long. Thank you.
Umi.
I think culture is a missing link in the gold mining industry. So we have a tremendous opportunity to seize about the 54 countries that represent our continent. But 54 countries is nothing compared to more than 2,000 language and different people that this continent embodies. And for that, to me, for people like us that are creative in production of exhibitions or publishing, it's infinite possibility to explore gold. And again, I think if we continue to understand who we are and call ourselves by people of the gold, like we will call ourselves the people of the land or the people of the forest or the people of the water, then we can start a new approach of how we can collaborate with the world.
Thank you very much, Umi, and thank you everyone for watching. I think maybe just to summarize briefly, I feel like what I will take away from this conversation, and I'm sure we could have delved deeper into this and say much more. There is so much to say when it comes to gold and culture, but we only have so much time. It's this idea of reclaiming narrative, but also sort of fully understanding and being able to verbalize or at least express that cultural ownership, the fact that it is so inherent to everything that we do across the continent, almost across 54 countries, and how we put that front and center in the process of continuing to develop gold as an ecosystem that benefits everyone. I don't know if that summarizes what we've talked about. I hope it does. Thank you very much for watching and following, and thank you all for being with us and speaking about this.
Merci.
Thank you. Merci.